Hey everyone, welcome back. You know we love to take these deep dives into self-help and personal growth, and today we're tackling anxiety, especially panic attacks, with Klaus Bernhardt's The Anxiety Cure.
And this book is really interesting because it's not just about slapping a Band-Aid on the symptoms. It goes deeper. Bernhardt digs into what's really causing that anxiety, and he gives us tools to take control.
Yeah, right from the start he kind of throws a curveball. He says maybe we shouldn't think of panic attacks as an illness.
It's more like they're a message. Like, from your unconscious, it's trying to tell you something.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
So, imagine you see a penguin, right? But it's in the middle of the desert. Obviously, that penguin's freaking out, but it's not sick. It's in the wrong place. Anxiety can be like that. It might be saying, hey, something's got to change in your life.
That's a really good analogy. So how do we figure out what our anxiety is trying to tell us?
Well, Bernhardt gets into some fascinating stuff about external triggers, things you wouldn't necessarily think of. Medications, recreational drugs, even gluten.
Wait, gluten?
Yeah.
Like the stuff in bread?
Yep. Some people experience what's called Rome-Held syndrome. Basically, bloating puts pressure on your diaphragm, and guess what? That can feel a lot like anxiety. Shortness of breath, heart palpitations, the whole 9 yards.
So you're telling me a sandwich could trigger a panic attack? That's wild.
It can, for some people. The good news is, simple things like changing your diet, getting some exercise, can make a big difference. Bernhardt even talks about avoiding gluten, staying hydrated, and adding things like caraway and ginger to your food.
Wow, so we got to listen to our gut, literally. Now, Bernhardt also shakes things up when it comes to therapy, right?
He does. He thinks some of those traditional therapies, like psychoanalysis or even exposure therapy, sometimes they don't work. And sometimes they might even make things worse.
That's a bold statement.
Mhm.
So if those common approaches aren't always the answer, what does he suggest instead?
This is where neuroplasticity comes in. Basically, your brain can change. It's adaptable. Bernhardt believes we can rewire our brains, train them to be more positive. One method he recommends is the 10-sentence method.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does that work?
It's simple, but powerful. Instead of letting those negative thoughts run wild, you come up with positive statements about the life you want, and you repeat them regularly. Instead of thinking, I'm always so anxious, you might say, I am becoming calmer and more confident every day.
So it's like replacing those negative tapes with positive affirmations.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the more your brain starts to believe it.
I like that. It sounds like a way to kind of reprogram your thinking. Now, I remember reading about something called the 5 senses technique in the book. What's that all about?
Oh, that's a good one. Imagine a scene from your dream life. It could be anything. You on a beach, achieving a goal, whatever brings you joy. Now, engage all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell, taste, touch?
It's like creating a whole immersive experience in your mind.
Exactly. And by involving all those senses, you make that vision more real, more emotionally powerful. Bernhardt says this helps rewire your brain way faster than those traditional methods. It can even affect your sleep and how you feel overall.
Wow, some pretty cool stuff. But what about those times when anxiety just hits you out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Does Bernhardt have any advice for handling those moments?
He does. It's all about what he calls pattern breakers. Basically, figuring out what triggers your anxiety and then finding ways to disrupt that whole chain reaction of fear. But you know what? That's a whole other conversation. So these pattern breakers, they're like having a secret weapon, when anxiety ambushes you.
I like that, a secret weapon. So tell me more. How do we use this weapon?
Okay, well, first you got to figure out what's setting off the alarm bells. Is it something you see, something you hear, or more of a gut feeling?
So like which sense is driving the anxiety? How do we pinpoint that?
Bernhardt's got these neat little tests. Say it's your ears, right? Your auditory channel. Think of a sentence that makes you anxious. Now notice, which ear do you hear it louder in?
Seriously. Yeah. It'll be louder in one ear than the other.
Could be. Then try it with a positive sentence, see if it flips, like your worry side versus your calm side.
Whoa. Okay, so say we figure out our dominant anxiety channel. What then?
Time to break the pattern. Let's say it's an image that gets you every time. You can use what he calls the visual slide technique. Imagine that image on your anxiety side, and then, like magic, slide it over to your calm side.
You're consciously moving it in your mind's eye.
Yep. And often it'll just disappear or morph into something totally neutral, maybe even positive.
I could see that being helpful for someone whose anxiety is really visual. But what about when it's more physical, like you feel it in your body?
Oh, he's got some really creative pattern breakers for those, too.
Mm.
He calls them kinesthetic triggers. Like, say you always feel like the ground's about to crumble beneath you.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's awful.
He suggests picturing these hydraulic lifts, embedded in the ground. Every time you step, they gently push you back up.
So you're basically rewriting the script in your head. Instead of danger, it's support.
Exactly. And it's like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get. You become this anxiety ninja, deflecting those thoughts before they take over.
Love it. But what if your anxiety isn't so clear-cut? Not just visual or auditory or even physical, just like a general unease.
Bernhardt's got you covered. There's something he calls the Smurf technique. It's for those folks who don't have a strong side for their anxiety. Basically, you give your inner voice a personality.
A personality. Like what?
Think like a cartoon character. A Smurf, maybe. It makes it less intimidating.
I can see that. It takes the power away.
It lightens the mood, but without pushing those thoughts down entirely. Because remember, Bernhardt's big on not just masking the anxiety, it's about understanding it, working with it. And that takes personal responsibility.
It's about realizing, hey, I have a say in how I react to this. I can choose what I focus on.
You got it. And that leads to lasting change. Like, remember that case study, Angela? She was stuck in this awful job, totally soul-crushing.
Right, right.
Sometimes you need a big external shift to create an internal one. And that comes back to taking responsibility, not just waiting for someone else to fix it.
Taking ownership of your mental health. I like that.
Absolutely, because you have more power than you think. You choose what you focus on, how you handle challenges, how you want to live your life. Bernhardt even says you don't have to wait until you're healthy to chase those dreams. In fact, going after them might be the best medicine.
That's a really powerful message. It's like anxiety doesn't have to hold you back. You can break free and create a life you love.
And it might not be a walk in the park, but it's a journey worth taking. What do you think?
Totally agree. It's inspiring, right? Like there's hope. Even when anxiety feels overwhelming, it's about taking those small steps, being kind to yourself, and never giving up on the possibility of healing.
And that's what's so great about the anxiety cure. It gives you a roadmap,
Yeah.
practical tools and techniques you can actually use.
Yeah, it doesn't just tell you to think positive and hope for the best. It's about understanding the nuts and bolts of how anxiety works, and then using that knowledge to create real, lasting change. I think our listeners will get a lot out of it.
Me too. And speaking of our listeners, we're actually coming to the end of our deep dive into the anxiety cure.
Oh, Red, time flies when you're having fun, right?
It really does. But hey, remember, this is just the beginning. The real work starts now. It's time to take what we've learned and put it into practice.
Absolutely. Small changes done consistently can make a world of difference. And hey, if you're struggling, know that you're not alone. There's help out there. And you have more strength and resilience than you realize.
So true. And don't forget, you don't have to be perfect. Progress, not perfection. That's the key. So go out there, experiment with these techniques, see what works for you. And most importantly, never give up on yourself.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it as insightful and empowering as we did.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on the anxiety cure. Reach out to us on social media, leave a review, let us know what resonated with you.
And hey, if you have any other books you'd like us to deep dive into, send those our way too. We're always looking for new adventures in personal growth.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep believing in your power to create the life you truly desire.
You know, it's amazing how much power we actually have over our own anxiety once we understand it better. But before we wrap up this deep dive into the anxiety cure, does Bernhardt leave us with any final words of wisdom on how to actually make these changes stick?
He does, and it's a good one. It's like a little motto. You don't have to be healthy to live your dream life. You can start living your dream life so you can finally be healthy.
Wait, so you're saying we don't have to wait until we've got it all figured out, anxiety-wise, before we go after what we want?
Nope, not at all. He actually thinks that going after those dreams can be like a huge part of getting better.
Huh. That's pretty cool. It really ties into this whole idea that we have way more control than we think, right?
Yeah.
Like anxiety doesn't have to call the shots.
Exactly. It's about understanding what's causing it and then using these tools to break free. We can create a life that's full of joy and purpose and connection and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And we don't have to do it alone either. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the anxiety cure. I hope our listeners are feeling fired up and ready to take charge of their mental well-being.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, folks, small steps, one day at a time. That's how we make lasting change.
So true. All right, everyone, that's it for today's deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another insightful exploration into the world of personal growth.